Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Chumps. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me, as always, my co-host, Annie.
And this week's episode, we are going to discuss Star Trek Into Darkness, as it comes up on its 10-year anniversary, starring Chris Pine, Zoe Saldana, Zachary Quinto, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
That Benedict, man.
Dude, Benedict. Freaking love Benedict Cumberbatch.
This is like prime Benedict Cumberbatch.
It is. I mean, he
had just finished Sherlock.
I don't know what season, though. Maybe two?
Maybe two. He was doing
I think
Hobbit, right? He was the voice of Smog.
Oh, my gosh.
Did you not know that?
I just made that connection.
Yeah, that's him.
Holy
And
pants.
he like mocapped the movement of it as well.
Oh,
it's so good.
I actually rewatched that recently, and I have thoughts. I mean, would you rather be on the ship deck, like as part of the main crew,
Okay.
or an ensign at the base of the bottom?
And ensign are the red shirts, right?
Ensigns are like the grunt people, but like do stuff that like end up dying in like at the end of the thing.
Isn't there a cartoon right now?
Yes, it's hilarious.
I've heard it's good.
It's so good.
I mean, obviously, I want to be like on the deck.
That's a terrible one. I gotta redo it. I gotta do it. Give me a second. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay. Would you rather be Starfleet or a Klingon?
That's good. Starfleet.
Starfleet?
Yeah.
Sweet. I mean, and I'm talking about like before Klingon, or they like have Klingons be in Starfleet or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd probably. Well, I don't know. Klingons they have such an interesting culture in Star Trek.
They do.
But I'd probably be Starfleet too. Would you be an alien though? Would you be like not human? Would you be like a humanoid that's not human?
It depends. Maybe like what kind of. I mean, being a Vulcan would be
sweet.
Would be challenging.
I couldn't do it though because I'm too emotional.
Too emotional.
I'm a Mexican dude. I'm fiery passion.
A Mexican Vulcan.
Dude, that'd be freaking great.
That'd be a good mix, right? Because Spock he's half human, but he's American half human.
Oh man, so good.
All right, well, let's talk about Star Trek Into Darkness. So this movie, 10 years since it came out.
It's wild.
May of 2013.
It's one of the first movies I believe I watched when I got back from my mission.
Okay. Well, what's your experience with Star Trek?
So
in general,
I mean, we're both Mexican.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I knew that Star Trek was a thing, but I never like got into it as like the show.
Yeah.
Part of it was just because like I think my parents culturally ignorant to some of the things that like you would think that I would know.
Okay.
Because my parents just didn't do, like, they were boring parents. I love my parents. Mom, I love you so much. Dad, you're great. You guys are boring. My mom has high blood pressure. We didn't go on rides when we were at Disney World. My dad always was working, trying to give us a good life, which I appreciated. But like I didn't know what March Madness was until I was like a senior in high school.
Okay.
Like that's how like ridiculous some of these things are. Okay?
Uh-huh.
But I remember when the first Star Trek came out, two things that I vividly realized. One, I was like, this world is amazing. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Two, the sound score for Star Trek has some of the best trombone lines ever.
That's true. Yeah.
Phenomenal score. And some of the lines and like motifs in the songs and the music just trigger things like very vivid memories for me. I remember watching the first, like in theater, we didn't even get a good seats. We were like towards the bottom, but I still remember watching it and being like, this is fantastic. And since then I've dived into the world of Star Trek and I've come to really love it. I mean, I've watched, the Lower Decks.
Lower Decks, that's what it is. Yeah.
Lower Decks is a animated show that's based on like the ensigns who are like the grunt people, but so funny. Like give nods to characters. You're part of like not the like main Starfleet. They're like the B class.
Yeah.
Amazing actors doing voice acting there. If you're a Star Trek, even if you don't really like Star Trek, this is a great show to watch.
I'm not have to watch
it sucks because Paramount Plus, they're doing a lot of this stuff, and it's really tragic because like more people should see some of these new Star Trek. They're doing really amazing things with the Star Trek universe. And I think it's tragic that like people who aren't going to pay for Paramount Plus are going to have access to it.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a Star Trek person who wants to watch Star Trek, or like, you know, NCIS or some of these other CBS shows. It's tragic. I wish
they're limiting
they're limiting
audience.
it. Honestly, if CBS execs, you're listening to this show, I'm giving you $1 billion like idea. License this out to other, like even if it's like after the fact, not like a net special, but like you're giving it to other people, because people you give out a couple seasons. Let's say, you know, after 3, you're on the 3rd season, release the first one on other platforms, because you're gonna get people hooked on like the shows, and then they come and subscribe to your subscription service.
Yeah,
because
that's smart.
Picard 3, phenomenal right now. It's some of the best Star Trek stuff you probably ever
really
can watch. Oh yeah,
I know that the first season kind of struggled.
I actually didn't mind the first season, and I think part of the reason why it didn't mind me is because I'm not like deep into the lore / that sort of thing, which is a big deal, because to me, again, I think I'm happy that I didn't have that, like, because I have a friend of mine, he grew up watching it with his dad, and in like, you know, with the Next Generation, some of these other things, and so he has fond memory of him, like the music and like for the opening scene.
Yeah,
I don't have that yet, but like I could totally see that with my daughter, like me wanting to watch one of the animated, like there's another show called Prodigy, which is a little bit more CG. That is kind of targeted to more like a younger, kind of interesting, youth audience. But again, I think to me, it's you kind of I had a friend of mine recently, Sean, who's been on the show. He you know, he loves Star Wars, but in some people there's like a big divide. Like you're either Star Wars or you're Star Trek.
Yeah.
But Star Wars is fantasy, and Star Trek is sci-fi.
Yeah.
And there is a very big distinction. And sometimes I tend to lean to Star Trek's story because it feels more real.
Sure.
When I think about like the experiences. So that's my premise. Going into Darkness, some of my like, I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I was really excited because, like, you know, season 1 of Sherlock is amazing. You know, he I think he had been announced as Doctor Strange
by this time.
I think
maybe or shortly after.
I thought it was around this time. I mean, in any case, I mean, he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to have him in the universe and go from there. I mean, granted, like I didn't know Khan, so I was like pretty, you know, I was like, okay, cool, let's watch it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my history on that.
Okay. My experience with, look at me in the camera, people, if you're watching this on camera. I am not a Trekkie. I'm not.
That's okay.
And that doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, I love Star Wars more than Star Trek. No, I enjoy both. But I definitely did not grow up watching it. I think as a kid, like I tried to watch it and I was just like, my ignorant, uneducated self was like, this is boring, right? And I didn't watch it.
I feel like it has come to our parents as immigrants coming to this country, which you would think that this show would be something that would resonate. But I just think that as like, you kind of have to be an adult to really understand some of the things that go on in Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, and Gene Roddenberry, right, the creator of Star Trek, like he really wanted to develop a show where society had progressed so far ahead that there were no wars, that inclusivity existed, right? And like he wanted to create this show where these things that we take that we're so bogged down and worried about war, financial, economic crises, like no longer, like we as a society could rise above these things.
Yeah.
And there are more things out there, right?
Right.
Space, the final frontier. And so like, yeah, I don't know why like this just didn't resonate with Mexicans, Latinos. I don't know.
I mean, I think they do now. I think
they do now. Yeah.
I mean, like, take it from me. Like, I feel like I've come to enjoy a lot of these. I've gone back. I haven't finished it all, but I've gone back to watch a lot of the Next Generation show. I don't watch it back to back. Partly because it's a show that you can watch any episode, and you can pick up anywhere. And I mean, obviously, it's nice. I'm a person who likes to watch everything,
Right.
from beginning to end. And once I do that, then I can jump around. But there's a lot of things that go into that, like history and things that connect back and forth.
Sure.
With the Trek, with the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to get into when I was a kid as well.
Yeah, and I think now as an adult, like I've began watching more of it. My issue, and this is just me. I get overwhelmed. Like you, I need to watch like from start to finish.
It's overwhelming.
But I get overwhelmed with how much there is. And if any listeners out there, if you have like a list of like the top 20 things that I need to watch Star Trek wise, please send it over.
Okay, I'm going to give you my recommendation. Okay. So this is Danny Rubio's recommendation to getting in for anyone getting into Star Trek. I'm not a full Trekkie, so I mean, if you're a full Trekkie, give us your list. But this is someone who's come in and enjoyed. I would start with Lower Decks. Okay. Because it's you get a little bit of the Star Trek world, but it's funny, and it's it pokes fun at some of the things that are there. Think Rick and Morty meets some other another like adult cartoon show, but like provides you a fun little entry point that doesn't feel like it's really connected to anything. Okay. It's a great place to start because there's only the thing that they're on the third season, so you can watch the first season and then go from there. Sure. After that, I would probably go I would pick any series, whether that be Deep Space Nine, Next Generation. I would probably not go with the first Star Trek, like the original Star Trek, because it is very, 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 very slow. It was written for a different time for television. I started with Next Generation, but there's a lot of seasons. So if you there's a lot of seasons. So you could but you don't have to watch all of it. What I would say is like watch one season, then watch some other Star Trek thing. Okay. So like you could watch that and then watch like Discovery. Sure. And then like go back to next, like you could hop the seasons around.
Okay, maybe that's what I do because I now as an adult, years ago, I'm like, you know what, I should get into Star Trek, and I started watching. I'm like, oh man, there's like 7 seasons that's up to like 60 episodes. And it's just like I don't know that I can set aside time for this, and like I really want to dig into it, so I get overwhelmed, and I think like also like when these new Star Trek, J.J. Abrams Star Trek came out, I was like, okay, this is
fresh start,
great.
and
the first one,
it does.
It's a fresh start, and it feels. You said the original series was written in a different time for a different audience, right? This one definitely feels fresh. I understand why people criticize these movies, like hardcore fans. 100% get it. But as someone who wasn't, who grew up with them, I love them.
I agree. I agree 100%. It opened my mind and made me realize why people love this series.
Exactly.
And I think that is so essential for a show like this, for a show that has deep roots in very good television. Yeah. And films. Like this show depicts a very unique, has helped many people feel welcomed. It has provided a insight to what writing messages and providing commentary on society and world in ways that maybe other people who may not have ever listened to something like this listen to some other side.
Yeah. And so I've really appreciated that, and it's given me that interest to like dig into Star Trek.
There's one other recommendation I would say. There's a new series called Strange New Worlds, which is kind of like the remake of the original Star Trek.
That one takes place like 5 years before. That's more of like 5 years before the original series takes place, right?
I think you might be right. I can't. I don't know the whole context. Yeah. I just remember I've watched it, and this cast is really good.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
And it feels very it feels like a very great start. Discovery is a little. I liked it, but I'm not a huge Star Trek, and I know that a lot of people had some difficulty time getting into Discovery, even though I feel like it was a bold move to tackle and a great way of showcasing that they wanted to try something new and fresh.
Yeah.
And I think Paramount, again, I just think that like it's tragic that they're not releasing it to other people so that other people will watch it.
Yeah.
Because they're doing good writing. I think it could bring a lot of new people, a new fan base. Anyways, so.
Okay. No, this is great.
Sorry. But we have to talk about this because Star Trek is hefty.
It's hefty. Yeah. And so I think it also, as you listeners, hopefully it gives you context of how we approach this discussion.
Yes.
We may not dig into like the lore of it all.
No.
Because I don't know it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm realizing that people are like, Danny, do you do anything other than watch TV? Because I watch a lot of content. I'm doing research, okay?
It's research, exactly. Okay, let's talk about this movie. I think I remember when it came out, a lot of people they had casted Benedict Cumberbatch, but they had said he was going to be playing an original role, a new role, and he wasn't Khan. And everyone kept speculating, no, it's going to be Khan, and JJ and Benedict kept saying, no, I'm not playing Khan. Spoiler alert, he does, right? He is Khan.
Yeah.
And I understand why people got upset by that, but let's talk Benedict. Like, yeah. He is great.
Absolutely. I think he is a very. Let's talk his entrance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, there's a couple things, especially as like if we ever get to the next one. But I'm sad that that this universe, especially with the third one, is actually not my favorite.
Really? The third one is my favorite.
For reals?
Yeah, I love Star Trek Beyond.
I might have to rewatch it because I remember watching. Anyways, because I remember watching this movie and just one like. I'm like, okay, well, what are they going to do with the Klingons? Because they come in just barely. They have like epic armor. I mean, Benedict coming around just like a one-man wrecking ball. But I mean, that's Khan.
That's Khan. I love it, right?
So good.
And I think also prior to that entrance is him on Earth, right? Engaging the dad and the issue that they're having with their daughter. Side note, I love seeing Earth in this timeline, like in this future time.
Me too.
It's so good. I don't know why. The skyline of London, especially, and San Francisco.
Or even in the first one, like,
when he's in Kansas, right?
Kansas.
Yeah.
Like, they did, J.J. Abrams and team, they did a phenomenal, like, they really emphasized the fact, and that's something I think, like, especially some of the newer Star Trek, like in Picard, there's a lot of stuff that happened on Earth. That, it's Earth has evolved and is a place that is a great place to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it is beautiful. It's fun. Sometimes I wish there would be more moments on Earth, but it's Star Trek, so it's Star Trek. It's space.
Yeah, in space. Anyways, it's just a side note. But Benedict Cumberbatch is so good at delivering the raw emotion that is Khan, right? And I want to talk a little bit about the two. But I'm going to try not to talk too much about Wrath of Khan and Into Darkness. But you look at Khan from Wrath of Khan and from the show, his clothing, his attire is very, very raw. Like in the movie, like he has the chest is wide open. People thought he was wearing a prosthetic. No, man, he got ripped for it, and it's just the long hair. Whereas this Khan is very clean cut, short, fully clothed, but his performance is just very raw, very aggressive. I felt that, especially watching it this round, how much it helps emphasize this character, because the character is a elite human. Mm-hmm. But when you think about this as an elite human, what he was made for, what they were, you have to kind of put into the fact that like is military. Yeah. And military is very straightforward, very clean cut. If you're trying to optimize for things, you try to make things that have less friction, having a very clean demeanor or whatever, very straight to the point, very methodical, or whatever you want to call it. You feel
him understanding the circumstances, but don't fully know how things are going to play out, which I loved. Like, I mean, sometimes when you see these characters that play in movies that are the alpha or whatever you want to call it, the elite, human, superhuman, sometimes they become very like processing.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Very, very processing, very analytical.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But he brings such emotion to his character.
Yes.
And you're right. I think when we see in other properties, when you see a more advanced individual, genetically advanced, they are very more analytical, more tactile. Where he is, but there is that rawness to him, and it's well delivered, especially when he is so protective of his crew. Which I think it's such a smart way to make us feel for this villain.
I mean, I believe it's similar to the original.
Another point, I haven't seen Wrath of Khan. I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah,
okay, so I know.
Don't add us.
Don't add us. Okay, I love that humanity aspect of him. Right? That he will crush your head with his bare hands.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie.
I totally forgot about that scene.
Me too. And I kind of wish that this movie. I understand why they did it, but I would have loved. I kind of had this moment of like, what would this movie have been if it was rating R?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of others, like just the whole aspect, especially with like Spock and Zoe, who play and like their conflict of love, and then like just the whole, I don't know, something about having a more mature rating would have made other aspects of this film, honestly, I felt like better. Not because of like the gruesome scene, but like the more they would have, some of the writing could have been a little bit more mature, I guess.
More mature, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could have addressed mature themes.
Yeah, or even like created greater danger of Khan's character.
Yeah.
That's probably where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah. Let's actually talk about that a little bit. Any other additional thoughts you have on the villain, Benedict? And we'll continue to talk more.
I mean, for me, I think this is solid. To me, feel like this really solidified Benedict Cumberbatch as a very powerful actor.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I didn't know that before, but he's an amazing actor. He's gone to film many other films that like just his breadth, the width of his acting is really, you can tell he really loves what he does.
And that he's great at it.
And he's great at it.
And I want more Benedict in my life. Like I really do.
So good.
We'll do a season of James Mangold, and then we'll do a season of Benedict Cumberbatch.
Let's do it.
I kind of want to talk about this. You bring up Spock and Uhura, right?
Uhura, mm-hmm.
I missed Zoe Saldana in this movie. She's not given as much.
Yeah.
But what she is given is done great. And Zoe is phenomenal. She's a great actress.
We've talked about her.
We've talked plenty about her. And I think for me, like I love the scene when they're in the shuttle and they're going into to meet up with Benedict, right?
Yeah.
And they're being chased by the
they're going to the Klingon
homeworld, right? Well, I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't add us. But she's having this like breakdown of like, you, Spock, like didn't even think about me when making the decision to take one for the team, right?
Well, and not only that, but like again, last week we discussed This Means War. Chris Pine as Kirk. I truly, I mean, I didn't have it, but this first Star Trek trilogy movie solidified what Star Trek introduced me to this new like reset, and I fell in love.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the cast was phenomenal. The fact that many of them reprise their roles, there are moments that did lack a little bit in the like the team characterness of like building, even though it was there and it was good.
Yeah.
Like you said, like, I mean, we have the opening scene with Spock. And I think this is where it's one of those weird things. The payoff, I mean, the setup is Spock going in and sacrificing his life. This is kind of like like, are you willing? I don't know. What
Here's how I wrote it.
Okay, yeah,
I
please.
wrote it. Let me pull up my notes. The idea of sacrificing the few for the many.
Yeah.
Right, and this is this theme that we feel towards that Spock is constantly bringing up. Right.
Right.
Yeah, like this idea, and we see it a lot when after their first mission is over, and they're meeting with Admiral Pike.
Yes.
And Kirk feels like he was thrown under the bus by Spock by filling out that report, right? and in Spock's mind, right? And he, not that he's justifying it, but he's processing it as, what's one life, my life, in comparison to saving many lives.
And that's part of Starfleet, right? It is. I mean, they have rules for reasons. They try to. They are civil. They've come to a point above what we are reminded because they understand the beauty of life.
Yeah,
and that's something about Star Trek that I truly appreciate. Especially as you get to some of the other like material, where in Star Wars, sometimes you like life isn't valued in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, sometimes it really bothers me, especially when I see something like in Star Trek where it helps bring such greater, like, a higher leverage or a higher sentiment. And I think part of it for me is like, I'm a very passionate person. So I meet somebody, I interact with people, I become passionate about them and wanting to help them out if they ever need something or whatever. And I think The Mandalorian provides that, a lot of those emphasis of like, why the Mandalorian has become very successful. He's a character that is a bounty hunter, gets tasked a job, has to save this little character, this little baby Yoda, so right? His background, he connects to him. Yeah. Right. And wants to value his life. This movie really, I think, did a very good job at providing us that emphasis of what that means and what the impact that has for people.
For individuals, yes. Yes. Right? For individuals. And the impact that it has on Pine and Uhura is very different. Mm-hmm. Right? Pine sees it as you by making this choice, there shouldn't be a choice, right? I can save you, and I will come and grab you. Like I'll pull you out of this. There's not. It's not an option. You dying is not an option. Right. Spock sees it as the sacrifice of a few outweighs the benefit for many, right? Yeah. And Uhura sees it as, what about me? Yeah. Like you never stop to think about how this is going to impact me. And it's the point of view from Starfleet, right? So you have all these different points of views of what it means to sacrifice, of what it means to lose a life, and what impact that'll have on many.
And not only that, but like, when is it the right choice to make that call?
Let's talk about the ending a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
So in this version, Spock takes it upon himself to go into the...
It's a radiation chamber for the warp drive, I think.
For the warp drive. Okay. If he goes into this radiation chamber, he will obviously die, and he won't be able to last. No, not Spock. Sorry, did I say Spock? I meant Pine.
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine. Kirk. So he goes in there, fixes it. He comes out. Spock, he's up on the deck, realizes that now the ship is working. Logically, someone says it's a miracle, and he's like, "There's no such thing as miracles. Something logical had to happen." So he runs down there, sees that that Kirk is has sacrificed himself for this. I love this bromance between the two of them.
Dude, Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine, absolutely
So good.
They did a phenomenal job casting.
And we talk about payoffs a lot in this podcast. This, in my opinion, it was such a great payoff because we see them throughout the whole film, starting with the first scene where they're on that planet, bickering as to why Kirk is not willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? He's not. It's not an option for him. But Spock is willing to. Right.
Right.
And we see this bickering back and forth throughout the film, but then Kirk decides to do that, right? That his sacrifice, that his death outweighs the safety of many.
But I mean, he's a captain, right? And there's a lot of Trekkies I understand that in the original con, it was Spock who ends up doing the sacrifice. You know, I'm not here to argue. You can we've talked about this before. Do some research, understand the context of these films. Like this was a reset.
Yeah.
Right. To me, I feel like it was like a Abrams doing a tip of the hat to the original, and like to some degree, he also introduced the whole fact that like some things may be different. I mean, he even introduced it earlier in the film. Like, what did you do when you faced Khan?
Yeah.
Right?
And which let's touch. I love that interaction between Spock and Spock Prime. I think is what he's originally in the credits. But I love that, and I love what Spock Prime says is of all of our adventures, Khan is a menace to not be reckoned with. And I love original Spock Prime's delivery. But going back to that, I think it's very crucial. So context. This is in this timeline, they haven't embarked on their 5-year mission yet.
Correct.
Okay? This Kirk isn't the Kirk that we know from the show.
Yeah.
Right? He hasn't matured yet. Even though Kirk in the show is still he's a
playboy.
He's a playboy, right? He gets into trouble, whatever. But this is not that Kirk yet. This is a Kirk that still is very rash in his decisions. Doesn't think things through. Maybe a little bit selfish. Yeah, he cares about his crew and their safety, but isn't the captain that we know Kirk, especially the captain that we know from Wrath of Khan. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is just another emphasis in the fact that like you bring up such a wonderful point that like you have to take into account like he is still understanding what it means to be a captain.
Exactly. And I think it's very crucial for both Spock and Kirk for that sacrifice to be reversed from Wrath of Khan in order for them to grow as characters.
Correct.
Right. It is important for I keep wanting to call him Pike. For Kirk,
yeah.
For Kirk to understand the importance of what it means to be a captain and having the safety of your crew be top of mind, but it's also important for Spock to realize that you need to feel, right?
Yeah, well, and being a captain of a Starfleet ship holds a very, I mean, it's like the pinnacle of Starfleet. When you think of the captains of the Starfleet, in Starfleet, and people who are operating ships, right, who are exploring or whatever, these are some of the top people in the universe.
Yeah.
Right? In this universe, Kirk, I mean, even from the first one, he's kind of not weasel, but he's found a way and he's become a captain.
Yeah.
And people seeing him what he can be before he can see it himself. And I think that's a testament to us in life.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to be placed in leadership roles, or we have to be thrust into circumstance where we have to take ownership and evaluate risk versus reward and navigate that. And we can't progress in life unless we're in that moment.
Exactly. There's that moment when Kirk is, in the chamber, and Spock comes to him, and Kirk says, this is what you would have done. It's only logical, right? So he's using the same approach as Spock would. He even asks him at one point, and this is what I love about it. He says, "How do you?" Let me see if I wrote it down. He says, "How do you choose not to feel?"
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Spock says, "I do not know. Right now, I'm failing." Right? He in order for these characters to be the Spock and the Kirk that we know that we know them to be because of their potential or because of the history that we have with these characters, they need to have this conflict. I think it's smart for their roles to have been reversed in comparison to Wrath of Khan, so that they could grow, so that Spock could have that opportunity to start feeling, to be more human, right, and for Kirk to be a little bit more, I don't want to say logical, but to put others' needs before his own.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm still kind of bummed that we haven't seen more of these movies, because I'm ready for.
And I don't know if we will.
I don't know we will.
It sucks because I agree. I think that they had something special with this cast. I think that many of the characters ended up being swept away in other projects.
Yeah.
And things just kind of died. I mean, like maybe just in the third one didn't get the same release or whatever. But it is tragic because I think part of it is like they are not the characters that we think of as like the original, from the original movies. And I think that's good.
That's good
because we can be reminded why the characters in the first place were great characters, and we as a new generation who might have at this time / even now and who end up watching it because of the new Star Trek shows or whatever, or might watch them and then want to watch more Star Trek stuff, can be introduced to them and who they are, like kind of like the core basis of some of these characters in this universe.
Yeah.
And to me, the overall aspect of friendship. I mean, you have not only that, but I also love, what's his name? No, Sulu.
Oh yeah,
Sulu. Getting the slight, he's taking the con. And there's often when there's, because of different moments in Star Trek, they often end up handing the con to other individuals.
Yeah.
And when an individual gets the moment to have the suit, it's always something that is like a huge mantle that is given.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes for those characters, it's a big deal because that means the main crew who are the key crews are off doing something very dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. And that means that if something bad happens, they're now
in charge.
They're now in charge. And Sulu was one of my favorite characters in the first one. Mm-hmm. And even though he doesn't get a lot of lines, I loved his perception and how he comes into the role. And Bones saying, "Remind me never to cross," which Bones sometimes
Bones is so fun.
He's so fun. I feel like the writing for him, and then not only that, but like
his metaphors.
Carl Urban just delivering on this, like just going over the top on the Bones character. Sometimes there was a couple of times where like I was like, "Is that too much?" And I'm like, no, I'm here for it.
I'm all for that.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, he is so good. I could just watch a spin-off of Bones.
I know.
But yeah, I love that. It's a great introduction to a new generation, and for me as someone who didn't grow up on them, I love these characters. I love the conflict that they're being faced or they're being put in before they go on their 5-year expedition. And it's exciting for me to be like, okay, we're getting to that point, and we're going to have a Spock and a Kirk that are more fleshed out and adaptable to this new audience. But I love that scene. I love that scene. He dies.
I cried again, dude.
It hits hard.
It hits hard. I think to me, this trilogy is a phenomenal way for people who don't know Star Trek to get involved.
Yeah.
Because you fall in love with the characters, but then you end up falling in love a little bit with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I think Khan, yes, is a villain, but the true villain is the Admiral.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit. You have in the notes the like morality of using advanced technology in warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very subtle setup, but a huge payoff. There's a scene where Kirk comes to the Admiral, and the Admiral, I didn't notice it in the past couple times that I've watched this movie, but I noticed it very vividly in this one, where you see all the spaceships, like from the ones that we know of, kind of developing into the Star Trek, the like Enterprises, and him walking and him looking at this, and the idea of having to go and meet with this threat, which is what this Admiral is trying to prepare for, and that he's doing this secret starship that is strictly military, and having it come to do a payoff of him just disregarding the whole rule of the sacrifice of a few is way better than the many. He does not care about the many. He cares about showing force. And it's especially I don't know what it is about the Star Trek universe, but the fact that like they've risen above many of the conflicts that we still deal with today. Seeing what this, like having someone kind of revert back, and having a lot of the characters surrounding the Admiral being big macho tough guys.
Yeah, right. It's funny because what's his face? His character when he, the one that's in charge of the warp, and he.
Oh yeah.
Simon Pegg's character.
Yeah.
when he gets caught, and he's like, "Are you part of
Scotty?"
He's like, "Are you part of Starfleet or are you private security?" Because of how big the guy is. He's so good.
So good.
I love Scotty.
Scotty's such a. I would also watch a whole
show of him.
Yeah.
And his little sidekick that follows him around. He says nothing. But no, that is true, right? This theme of using advanced technology in warfare. But again, going back to, he's willing to sacrifice his own people for the quote unquote for the greater good, right? Which the greater good is we need to go eliminate the Klingons,
right?
Whether they come or not, right? And so, and in contrast to Spock's ability to sacrifice the few for the benefit of the greater good, right? It's such great approach to these characters. I really enjoy this movie. 10 years later, I think it holds well.
100%.
I understand people's criticisms. Yes, JJ gets a little bit carried away with the lens flares.
You mean lens flares?
The lens flares.
And the anamorphic. Yeah, dude. I still love the soundtrack, but it is heavy.
We could do a whole episode. I have a huge love for Michael Giacchino, who scores these. I think he is incredible, which he just did his first directorial debut with the Marvel special, the one with Werewolf by Night. He directed that.
Oh, I haven't watched it.
Oh, it's great.
I know it's on my watch list.
Yeah, it's his first attempt at directing, and it was really good. But he is such a great composer. I think he is one of the few composers who makes you, in my opinion, can take old properties or well-known properties, introduce new music to it, and it just feels, or not original, but it feels like it's part of that universe.
Yes, I to me, one of the couple of things that I remember as I was watching this again, it holds up. I mean, it's absolutely J.J. Abrams. It's absolutely Bad Robot in like the lens flare, in the epicness, some of the the sweeping shots, all these the like swells of the music, and like the kind of fast-paced dialogue at times.
The cutting back and forth between the dialogues, instead of keeping them on the same screen, just
there it may get old at some point, but not yet.
Not yet.
And honestly,
I'm okay with it.
And to me, and maybe it's because like we grew up in some of the Abrams time frame, but to me it was pleasant rewatch.
It's a great one.
Yeah,
go back, go watch it. We'll revisit Star Trek Beyond because I love it. I know maybe you don't, but
I didn't watch it in theaters, and so there's like. I think I didn't watch it. I wanted to watch it in theaters, and I didn't. And then I took a long time before I watched it. And I think every single time I've watched it, it's always been slightly distracted.
Okay.
I think I just haven't really sat down and like been able to really just soak it in.
Yeah.
Part of it is because like I knew it just felt like. Anyways, yeah, we'll have to talk about it. Let's talk about our favorite scenes before we wrap up.
That's it.
What's your favorite scene?
I think for me it's that scene, and I like it just because of the things that it's bringing up. It's the scene with General Pike, Chris Pine, and Spock. Okay, and I talked about this, but Kirk feels like he got thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
Right, and you have this great interaction between the two characters, and yeah, going back to JJ's style of cutting back and forth between the two, of those quick cuts. And I like it because it lets us know what it is, how Kirk feels about his role. Not necessarily about him as a captain, but him as an individual within Starfleet.
Yeah.
And the expectation that he had of Spock. But we also learn about Spock and his loyalty to just being logical, or just not loyalty, but just him being a Vulcan.
Yeah, but also like Starfleet.
But also Starfleet, right?
Like, Starfleet, they're most of the time, they don't tend to like when people go off book.
Yeah. And then you have Pike, who right, he took Kirk under his wing, gave him this opportunity, right, and gave him his ship, and Pike is there as the third point of view to kind of help Kirk be aware of what's happening, and why this conversation needs to happen.
So tell me what you did wrong. What's the lesson to be learned here?
Never trust a Vulcan.
Oh, so you can't even answer the question. You lied. On an official report, you lied. You think the rules don't apply to you because you disagree with them.
That's why you talked me into signing up in the first place. It's why you gave me your ship.
I gave you my ship because I saw greatness in you.
And it's these three characters. We're seeing this dynamic, three different points of views, this conflict that's going to give us that payoff later in the film. And I just love how it's staged. I love that it's I think any other director would have kind of had that conversation after the big explosion of the volcano. They could have gone mad at each other, but it's not that. It's giving us an opportunity to say, here's what this film is going to be, and we're doing it strictly with dialogue, and we're doing it with these characters who you love, and we're going to create conflict between them, but there's going to be payoff where one sacrifices for everyone. And I just love the themes it brings up. I love the monologue and the dialogue between and how it was well written. And it just, I'm all about that payoff. I love the setting and how it's set up, and then later gets paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, my favorite scene isn't actually necessarily a direct like one scene. It's actually the Scotty Kirk like sea story. I don't know if that's like the best way.
Yeah.
The interaction with Scotty being like not happy with the nukes. Mm-hmm. He's very against it. Kirk coming in and like having conflict, and then him just like, oh, I'm not here. I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah.
And leaving.
Do you accept my resignation?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And him trying to battle, like Kirk trying to battle his having to be like the captain and having to accept the situation, right? Yeah. Even though he doesn't want it, he's like, just accept it, right? But Scotty, and then later having the phone call to like apologize. He's like, I guess I'll accept that apology or whatever. Like that scene is great. But then again, Scotty showing up with having to be the key person to open up the little airlock with like we mentioned, and having that whole thing, that collective, like those collective moments are probably some of my favorite things in this movie. I've always I liked Scotty in the first one a lot. Him and his rock character, whatever his name is, but also because the fact that like in this world, sometimes having to step up to that character is a big thing, and like how that ends up playing out to what needs to happen, right? And not only but like the friendship, right? They're like, hey, there's only one person I can call to help me figure out some of this stuff out and whatever, because he's not here, right? In any case, I just think it's a fun, like, to me, those characters just do really well. I mean, of course, the payoff with Spock and Kirk, but I mean, this movie is just a fantastic movie.
It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it the second time. I think it still holds well, and
that's crazy to me that you've only watched this movie twice.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I've watched it. I think this might have been my fourth time watching it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, this was 2013, so shortly after you had Star Wars, and there's just been so much content in this last decade.
No, yeah. I mean, I think I ended up rewatched all three of the Star Treks.
Okay.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
Probably during quarantine, I was just like, I want to rewatch it, and then that's kind of where I started like watching all the other Star Wars content stuff.
My last thought: I love seeing the Enterprise like get destroyed.
Dude,
such a beautiful visual of seeing this iconic ship that carries so much history in pop culture and in film and TV, and I love seeing it fall and like almost destroy. And then when it starts working and it falls beyond the clouds and then just and the score comes in. Oh, I love that. Just that visual of the Enterprise falling and almost just like falling to pieces. It hits me.
The CGI spaceship stuff.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know how they. I'm pretty sure it's CG. I mean, I don't think it's miniatures. I think it's all CG, but it is well done. It is epic. It makes every single time I watch these movies, period, and even some of the shows, but like these movies particularly, I am like, man, it would be amazing. It would be freaking amazing to be part of a Star Trek crew, like a Star Trek Starfleet crew, and being like operating and helping, do this thing, because like it is majestic. That's what it is. It's majestic.
Did you ever side note? Did you ever do the space camp in school?
I never did space camp. Did you?
Yeah, man. Like our school district would take like one day, all the. I think it was like in 5th grade or 6th grade, but we would all go and like the space camp for just a day, and it was fun. Like you would choose like captain, and you would choose like your. It's fun. It's fun. They have it for adults too, and like the missions are like pretty intense. I hear. I haven't done it. We should do that.
That's interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
No, when I lived in Memphis, we were close. I mean, it was a bit of a drive. I think it was like about 4 or 5 hours. But the NASA or one of the like a space thing was nearby, and I always wanted, like, we went past it once, and I kept thinking maybe we should go do it. But space, there's something about the idea of Star Trek that is really exciting, but also like, because it seems not necessarily what I love to have what Star Trek society is for us, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But the idea of going to space, it feels so unreal, even though I want it to happen so bad.
Yeah, and again, going back to the famous monologue, like space, the final frontier, right? These are the logs of the Enterprise, whatever. And he goes on, but like that concept it's to go where no man has gone before, right? To seek new civilizations.
Yeah.
What Starfleet stands for is there's something so intriguing and like, yeah, just you want to be involved in it, and you want to know more, and like, especially where we live now, or the time that we live in now, where we've I don't want to say we've halted space exploration, but we have, right?
Well, not only that, but it's like it's not something that they're trying to do. Like it's and honestly, sometimes I wonder what would happen if we focused on trying to reach a new height.
Yeah.
Instead, like, I mean, there was a lot of advancement in technology at the time of the space race. A lot of movement, a lot of change, a lot of growth happened. What would happen today?
Yeah.
You know, it feels like maybe people would want to work together more. There might be more welcoming nature. It might not. Maybe there cause some other conflicts. But it's just one of those things that, like, because it gets talked about all the time. You know, like, I mean, SpaceX with Elon Musk, like, oh, next thing is to go to Mars. And, like, I mean, let's be honest, like, we emphasize, we romanticize, we dream of these things in films all the time. And to some degree, because of these films, we have some of the technology we have today because of the idea of what
they presented us with.
What could it be, right? I mean, Star Trek, particularly with the, like, communicator and, like, being a flip phone, like, that kind of, anyways. But there is something about that I like. I wish there was still more of in actual life. There are people out there that are trying to do things, but as a society,
why can't we back it up as we did, like, in the 60s?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was great. I love this conversation. I love Star Trek. We're going to come back to the other ones. But we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating. Make sure you subscribe, share with people. It really helps us get discovered. And we love doing this, and we love hearing from you. So subscribe, rate, share.
If you are listening on Spotify, you can go at the bottom of the episode show notes. We have various polls, as well as the opportunity for you to send us a message or engage with us. So we'd love it if you did that. Let us know some thoughts that you have on Star Trek. If this is something that, if you're a big Trekkie, if you didn't love it, let us know why. We're really would love to get more of you guys to talk with us, so we can have maybe on our 20th episode have a, like, viewer show to share some of your comments and things like that. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in contact with us or send us a message, again, you can email us at your@realchums.com or connect with us on YouTube at your Real Chums, or with me on Twitter, Rubio_TV.
You can find me on Twitter as well on Marstrosity, MARZTROSITY.
Okay, join us next week as we discuss another 10-year look back, Iron Man 3. And boy, am I excited about this conversation.
This is. I'm excited for this one. I think I've seen it since its 10 years release. I think I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. I'm so excited to talk about it with you.
Okay. All right.
See you guys next week.
We'll see ya.